The teacher entered the classroom and saw his daughter being humiliated. His response stopped the school. Michael Johnson took a deep breath before pushing open the classroom door. It was his third day as a substitute teacher at Lincoln Elementary School in Richmond, and he was still adjusting to the new routine after being unemployed for 2 years. What he didn't expect was to find his own daughter at the center of a scene that made his heart race. Emily was hunched over her desk, shoulders slumped forward, while Madison pointed a finger at her with a cruel smile on her lips. The girl's math notebook lay on the floor, its pages scattered, and a few children giggled quietly. Emily's simple grey blouse stood in stark contrast to the designer clothes the other girls wore, and Michael immediately realized this was no coincidence. Silence fell as he entered. Madison quickly returned to her seat, pretending nothing had happened. Emily looked up and met his gaze, and for a moment Michael saw panic flash across her face. She shook her head almost imperceptibly, a silent plea for him not to reveal who she was. Michael had gotten the job without mentioning he had a daughter attending the school. Emily had begged him to keep it a secret, afraid her classmates would treat her differently. Now he understood why. "Good morning, class," he said, forcing his voice to sound steady. "Put away your history materials. We'll start with math." As the students settled, Michael watched his daughter bend down to pick up the scattered pages. Her fingers trembled slightly, and he noticed a red mark on her left cheek. Madison had hit her. Anger surged like lava through his veins, but he swallowed hard and walked to the board. For the next 15 minutes, Michael tried to focus on explaining fractions, but his eyes kept drifting back to Emily. The girl kept her head down, doodling in her notebook without paying attention to the lesson. When he asked a simple math question, one he knew she could answer easily, Emily stayed silent. That's when Madison raised her hand. "Teacher, I think Emily doesn't understand because she's just really dumb." A few snickers rippled through the room. Michael felt his blood boil, but forced a professional smile. "Madison, let's keep things respectful in class. And you, can you tell me what 3/4 plus 1/2 is?" The girl hesitated, clearly unsure of the answer. Michael waited patiently as she stammered, then turned to Emily. "Emily, can you help your classmate?" His daughter murmured the correct answer, so quietly it was barely audible. Michael praised her, but he noticed Madison's glare only grew more hateful. Recess came as a relief. Michael stayed behind, organizing materials while watching the students file out. Emily was the last, walking slowly, avoiding his gaze. When they were alone, she approached his desk. "Dad, you can't—" "I know," he whispered, glancing at the door. "But tell me what's going on." Emily looked around nervously. "She said I can't talk to you during class, that if I tell you anything, it'll get worse." "How long has this been happening?" "Since school started. She says my clothes are poor, that my dad must be a loser because of it." Emily's voice shook. "She doesn't know you work here." Michael felt a sharp pang in his chest. Ever since he'd lost his job at the factory, Emily had insisted on wearing last year's clothes, even though she'd outgrown them. She claimed they still fit, but he knew it was to avoid straining their tight budget. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. "Daddy, please don't say anything. If she finds out you're my dad, it'll be so much worse." "Her mum is the principal." Michael froze. Principal Victoria Reynolds was known for protecting her daughter above all else. In the 3 days he'd been there, he'd already noticed that Madison had special privileges. She arrived late without consequences, never brought her materials, and always had excuses that were accepted. "Mrs. Barbara tried talking to the principal once," Emily continued. "Madison told her mum, and Mrs. Barbara almost got fired. She said it was her fault for not keeping discipline in check." Mrs. Barbara Wilson was an educator with over 30 years of experience. Michael had spoken with her in the teacher's lounge and noticed she avoided talking about certain students. Now he understood why. "Sweetheart, this can't go on." "Dad, please. There are only a few months left in the school year, then I'll switch classes." Michael wanted to hug his daughter, to protect her, but he heard footsteps in the hallway. Emily quickly returned to her desk and pretended to search for something in her backpack. Seconds later, the students returned from recess. The afternoon got worse. During English class, Madison accidentally spilled ink on Emily's notebook. When the girl tried to clean it, Madison said loudly enough for the whole class to hear, "Oh, sorry, but it doesn't even matter. You spell everything wrong anyway." Michael stepped in, telling Madison to focus on her own work, but the damage was done. Emily spent the rest of the class trying to salvage what she could from the stained notebook. At the end of the day, Michael waited until everyone had left before approaching his daughter again. He found her in the courtyard, sitting alone on a bench, staring at her ruined notebook. "Come on, let's go home," he said softly. On the way, Emily finally broke down. "Dad, I can't take it anymore. She does this every day. She hides my stuff, throws things at me, calls me ugly and poor in front of everyone. And now the others are doing the same thing because she said anyone who's my friend will get it too." Michael stopped walking and knelt in front of his daughter. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because you were already sad about not having a job. I didn't want to make you worry more." Tears streamed down Emily's face. "And now you finally got work, but it's at my school. If you fight with the principal because of me, you could lose your job again." Michael hugged his daughter, his heart breaking. At 9 years old, Emily carried worries no child should have. Since Jennifer passed away 2 years ago, it had been just the two of them against the world. His little girl had grown up too fast, always trying to protect him just as he tried to protect her. "Sweetheart, my job isn't more important than your well-being." "But Dad, we need the money. I know you haven't bought me new clothes because things are tight. If you lose this job..." Michael closed his eyes. Closed. How could a 9-year-old understand the family's finances better than most adults? Jennifer always said Emily was special, too sensitive for her own good. That night, after Emily fell asleep, Michael stayed awake, planning. He couldn't act impulsively and lose his job, but he couldn't let his daughter suffer either. He had to be strategic. The next morning, he arrived at school determined to observe everything more carefully. During first period, he pretended to grade papers while watching the class dynamics. What he saw disturbed him even more. Madison had a system. She whispered cruel remarks to the girls near her, who laughed and repeated them to others. When Emily got up to sharpen her pencil, Madison stuck out her foot, making her trip. The girl caught herself on the desk to avoid falling, but dropped her pencils on the floor. "What a klutz," Madison murmured, just loud enough to be heard. Michael pretended not to have seen, but mentally noted every detail. During recess, he decided to talk to Barbara Wilson. He found her in the teacher's lounge, grading tests with a tired expression. "Barbara, can I ask you something?" She looked up, and Michael noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "Of course, Michael. Have you ever had problems with bullying in your class?" Barbara hesitated, glancing around to make sure they were alone. "Why do you ask?" "I've noticed some delicate situations." "Michael, you're new here. Let me give you some advice. Some things are better left unseen." "What do you mean?" Barbara sighed deeply. "I tried to do the right thing once. I reported a serious bullying case to the administration. The next day, the principal called me in and said I was exaggerating, that kids will be kids. A week later, she found irregularities in my paperwork and nearly fired me. Luckily, the union stepped in." "And the bullying?" "It continued and got worse for the child because the bully's mother found out someone had complained." A chill ran through Michael's stomach. It was exactly what Emily had told him. "Barbara, what if we had undeniable proof?" "Michael, do you have a family to support?" "Because I do. I have 3 kids and an ex-husband who doesn't pay child support. I can't afford to be a hero." Her answer left him speechless. He understood her position, but he couldn't accept that his daughter would keep suffering because of everyone's fear. That afternoon during art class, something happened that nearly made Michael lose his composure. The teacher, Rachel, had asked the students to draw something that made them happy. Michael was helping a struggling boy when he heard the sound of paper tearing. He turned just in time to see Madison finishing ripping Emily's drawing into tiny pieces. "Oops," she said with a fake smile. "It slipped out of my hand." Emily looked at the shreds of her drawing scattered on the floor. It was a portrait of her and Michael together, with the words "My hero" carefully written underneath. She had worked on it the entire class. Michael saw tears forming in his daughter's eyes, and something inside him shattered. He took a step toward Madison, but Emily shook her head desperately, reminding him of what was at stake. "Madison," he said, his voice tight. "Come here, please." The girl approached with a defiant look. "Mr. Johnson, it was an accident. I was grabbing my eraser and bumped into the drawing." "I see. Then you'll help Emily make a new one, and you'll use your own supplies." "But, Mr. Johnson, I don't know how to draw people." "Then this is a good chance to learn." Madison scowled but couldn't refuse in front of the class. For the next 20 minutes, Michael watched as she reluctantly helped Emily recreate the drawing. It was obvious she wasn't happy about it, but at least she was being civil. When class ended, Michael thought he'd won a small victory. But his relief didn't last. The next day, Emily arrived at school with her face swollen from crying. "What happened?" he whispered when he got the chance. "She told her mom you were cruel to her yesterday. The principal called me into her office and said if my dad is defending me inappropriately, maybe I shouldn't go to school here." Rage burned inside him. The principal had threatened his daughter directly. Did she say anything else? That substitute teachers are easily replaced, and so are families who cause trouble. The threat was clear. Michael was being warned. Both his job and Emily's enrollment were at risk if he kept interfering. At lunch, he sought out other teachers. Most avoided the subject, but the physical education teacher, Robert Taylor, was more direct. "Michael, everyone knows what's happening, but everyone also knows that questioning the principal is professional suicide. She has connections at the education department. She's involved in city politics. I've seen 3 teachers lose their jobs for confronting her. And you all just accept it? What do you suggest? That I lose my job and let my family go without to protect a child who isn't even mine?" Michael knew Robert was being honest, but the pragmatism of the answer infuriated him. How had they reached a point where protecting a child was considered heroism? That night, he called Jennifer's sister, Sarah, who lived in New York and worked as a lawyer. "Sarah, I need legal advice." "What happened, Michael?" He told her everything, from the bullying to the principal's threats. Sarah listened in silence. "Michael, technically you have rights, but in practice it'll be very hard to prove anything. It's a child's word against an established principal's. What if I got evidence?" "What kind of evidence?" "Recordings, testimonies from other students." "Michael, be careful. Recording minors without permission could land you in legal trouble. And as for testimonies, do you really think other kids will have the courage to speak against the principal's daughter?" Michael hung up more confused than before. It seemed there was no legal way out that didn't put everything at risk. But the next morning, something changed. Michael arrived at school and found a group of mothers talking nervously at the gate. As he passed by, he caught fragments of their conversation. "It's not just Emily. My daughter came home crying too. This kind of behavior isn't normal." During recess, the mother of a student named Olivia approached Michael. "Mr. Johnson, do you teach my daughter's class?" "Yes, ma'am. Is Olivia okay?" "No, she's not. She came home yesterday saying she doesn't want to come to school anymore. When I asked why, she told me things." The woman hesitated. "Have you noticed any problems in class?" Michael weighed his words carefully. "Mrs. Amanda, if Olivia is reporting issues, I think you should speak with the administration. I already tried. I scheduled a meeting with the principal for tomorrow, but I wanted to know if you, as her teacher, have noticed anything." "What exactly did Olivia say?" "That one girl in class has been very cruel to several others, that she saw this girl push another child, hide school supplies, and that everyone is too scared to say anything." Michael nodded slowly. "Mrs. Amanda, I think you're doing the right thing by going to the principal. And if you need an account of what I've observed in class, I can help." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The woman smiled in relief. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's good to know there are adults here who care about the children." After she left, Michael felt a spark of hope. If other parents were noticing problems, maybe he wasn't alone in this fight. During afternoon class, he watched more closely and noticed things he'd missed before. Madison didn't limit her behavior just to Emily. She whispered cruel remarks to several girls, especially those from less privileged families. When Olivia made a mistake on the board, Madison muttered, "So dumb. No wonder her mum's a janitor." The comment was quiet, but Michael heard it, and he noticed several other children had heard it too, laughing nervously. After class, he discreetly spoke to Olivia. "Olivia, how are you feeling about school?" The girl looked around nervously before answering. "Teacher, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "Madison is really mean. She says bad things about everyone. Yesterday she said my mom is poor, and that's why I have to wear ugly clothes." "And did you tell your mom about this?" "I did. She got really angry and said she's going to talk to the principal. But Madison said if anyone complains about her, her mom will kick everyone out of school." Michael felt the pattern repeating. Madison was using her mother's position as a weapon to silence any resistance. "Olivia, are you afraid of Madison?" The girl nodded vigorously. "Everyone is. She said her mom owns the school and can do whatever she wants." That night, Michael had a serious talk with Emily. "Sweetheart, other kids are going through the same thing as you." "I know, Dad, but no one says anything because everyone's scared." "What if those kids' parents joined together? What if you all spoke up?" Emily shook her head. "Dad, you don't understand. Madison's mom is really powerful. Everyone knows she can kick out whoever she wants, fire teachers, do anything. She's kicked kids out before." "Why?" "Last year, a boy named Jack hit Madison because she was picking on him. The next day, he was expelled. His mom tried to complain, but the principal said he was violent and dangerous." Michael knew that story. Jack had been transferred to another school with a tarnished reputation. Now he understood the situation might be more complicated than it had seemed at the time. "Dad, please don't do anything. I'd rather tough it out till the end of the year than have you lose your job." Michael hugged his daughter, but inside, his resolve grew. He couldn't let a 9-year-old sacrifice her happiness to protect him. It was his job to protect her, not the other way around. The next day, the meeting between Amanda and the principal happened during Michael's class. He couldn't hear it directly, but the outcome became clear when he saw Amanda leaving the school, her face red with anger. At recess, she approached him again. "Mr. Johnson, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Mrs. Amanda. How did the meeting go?" "A joke. The principal said I was exaggerating, that kids sometimes argue and that's normal. When I mentioned specific behaviors, she said I was falsely accusing an innocent child." "What about what Olivia reported?" "She said Olivia has an overactive imagination and that maybe I should get my daughter psychological help instead of blaming other kids for her problems." Michael felt his anger rise. The principal was using psychological manipulation tactics to discredit complaining parents. "Mrs. Amanda, what do you plan to do?" "I don't know. She made it clear that if I keep causing trouble, Olivia might have a hard time at school. She basically threatened me." "Do you have everything documented?" "I have some notes, but she was smart. She did everything verbally, never wrote anything that could be used against her." Michael thought quickly. If the principal was doing this to one mother, imagine what she was doing to the kids who complained directly. "Mrs. Amanda, can I suggest something?" "What?" "How about we talk to other parents? If multiple families are dealing with the same problem, maybe together you'll have more strength." "Do you think that would work?" "I don't know, but it's worth trying. One voice is easy to silence. Many voices together are harder to ignore." Amanda nodded thoughtfully. "I'll talk to some mums I know are worried. If I can organize something, can I count on your support as a teacher?" Michael hesitated. Officially supporting them would mean fully exposing himself. But he looked into the classroom, where Emily was sitting alone while other children played in groups, and knew he had no choice. "You can count on me." In the following days, Michael noticed a subtle change in the school. There were whispered conversations among parents at the gate, worried glances, a tension in the air that hadn't been there before. During this time, Madison's behavior worsened. As if she sensed her authority was being questioned, she became more aggressive. Michael saw her accidentally spill water on Emily's backpack, hide Olivia's pencil, and make cruel comments about other girls' clothes. The worst moment came on a Thursday. During recess, Michael was organizing materials when he heard screams from the playground. He ran outside and found Emily on the ground, her knee scraped and bleeding, while Madison stood nearby with a look of fake concern. "What happened here?" he asked, kneeling beside his daughter. "It was an accident, Mr. Johnson," Madison said quickly. "Emily tripped and fell." But Michael saw the fear in the eyes of the other children nearby, and he noticed Emily avoided looking directly at him. He took his daughter to the nurse's office, where she finally spoke up. "She pushed me, Dad," Emily whispered when they were alone. "She said she found out my mum was trying to cause trouble for her." Michael froze. "What mum? Emily, did you tell anyone I'm your father?" "No. She said Olivia told her a mum was complaining about her, and she knew I was involved because I'm always sad. She said if I say anything about what she's done, it'll get much worse." The situation was escalating dangerously. Madison was becoming more violent, and Michael realized he needed to act before someone got seriously hurt. That night, Amanda called him. "Mr. Johnson, I spoke to 5 other mums. All of them have kids going through similar problems. We scheduled a meeting for Saturday morning to decide what to do. Where will it be?" "At my house. Can you come?" Michael looked at Emily, who was doing homework at the kitchen table. She had insisted she was fine, but he noticed she'd barely touched her dinner. "I'll be there. And Mrs. Amanda, maybe it's time to be more direct about what's happening." "What do you mean?" "I think we should consider going to higher authorities. The education department, child services, maybe even the press." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mr. Johnson, this is serious. If we do this, there's no turning back." "I know, but we can't let this continue either." On Saturday morning, Michael left Emily with a neighbor and went to the meeting. He found 6 mothers sitting in Amanda's living room, all with worried expressions. "Good morning, everyone," he said. "Thank you for including me." One of the mothers, who introduced herself as Jessica, mother of a boy named Ryan, spoke first. "Mr. Johnson, before we start, I have to ask, why are you getting involved in this? Not that we don't appreciate it, but substitute teachers usually don't step into trouble like this." Michael took a deep breath. It was time to be honest. "Because my daughter goes to this school, and she's one of the main targets." The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Amanda spoke. "Your daughter? Who is your daughter?" "Emily Johnson, from 4th grade, Class B." "Emily," said a woman named Michelle. "My daughter Abigail has mentioned her. Said Madison picks on her a lot." "So you understand exactly what we're going through," Jessica said. Michael nodded. "I do, and that's why I'm willing to go all the way to fix this." For the next 2 hours, the mothers shared similar stories. Children who didn't want to go to school, nightmares, falling grades, regressive behaviors. They had all tried to talk to the principal, and they had all been dismissed or threatened. "What do you think about reaching out to the education board?" asked Michael. "I already tried," said a mother named Christina. "I spoke to the regional coordinator. She said she fully trusts Principal Victoria, and that disciplinary issues should be resolved internally at the school." "What about Child Protective Services?" "I tried that too," said Michelle. "They said they need concrete evidence of physical abuse or neglect. Psychological bullying isn't considered a priority." Michael was starting to understand the mother's frustration. The system seemed designed to protect the institution, not the children. "What if we documented everything?" he suggested. "Recordings, photos of the bruises, written statements from the kids." "Michael, recording minors without permission is illegal," said Amanda. "And our kids are too scared to give statements," added Jessica. Michael felt the frustration growing. Every path they tried seemed blocked. That's when Christina said something that changed everything. "Everyone, what if we looked into other schools, other classes? If this is happening in 4th grade B, could it be happening elsewhere too?" "What do you mean?" asked Michael. Madison is in 4th grade now. She came from somewhere. What if we talked to parents of students who were in her class last year? That's a great idea, said Amanda. If we could prove this is a behavioral pattern that's been going on for years, it would be much harder for the principal to dismiss, Michael finished. The mothers split up to investigate. Michelle took responsibility for talking to 3rd grade parents. Christina would look into the 2nd grade, and so on. Michael would use his position at the school to observe and discreetly document. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On Monday, Michael returned to school with renewed purpose. During recess, he sought out older teachers and tried to gather information about the class's history. Teacher Barbara once again was the most direct. Michael, you're stirring up a hornet's nest. Barbara, I need to know. Has this always happened? She looked around, then sighed. Madison has been here since 1st grade. Every year there are complaints. Every year the principal protects her daughter and silences those who speak up. I've seen 3 good teachers fired for trying to intervene. And you never tried to do anything? Michael, I'm 62. I have 3 years until retirement. If I lose this job now, I won't get another. I don't have the luxury of being a hero. Michael understood but couldn't accept it. What about the children who suffer? I try to protect the ones I can inside my classroom, but I can't work miracles. Over the week, the mother's investigations yielded horrifying results. Michelle discovered that the year before, 2 students had been transferred after incidents involving Madison. Christina found records of formal complaints that had been filed away without investigation. Jessica made the most shocking discovery. Talking to a mother whose child had attended the school 3 years earlier, she learned that Principal Victoria had been transferred from another school in the district precisely because of issues related to her daughter's behavior. So she's caused problems before? Michael asked when the mothers regrouped. Apparently, yes. But she's always managed to sweep things under the rug or get transferred before it blew up. And this time, she got the principal position. He has more power to protect his daughter and silence those who complain. Michael felt a mix of anger and determination. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a systematic pattern of power abuse that had gone on for years. Folks, I think it's time to escalate this. We have enough evidence to take it to higher authorities, he said. How? Asked Amanda. We go straight to the city's Department of Education, and if they don't listen, we go to the press. The mothers exchanged nervous glances. Michael, this is too risky, said Christina. If it backfires, our kids will face retaliation. And if we do nothing, they'll keep suffering anyway. At least this way, there's a chance to stop it. After much debate, they decided to try one more approach within the school first. They would schedule a joint meeting with the principal, all the mothers together, and present their concerns in an organized, documented way. If she dismisses us or threatens us again, then we'll seek outside help, Amanda decided. The meeting was set for the following Friday. Michael took charge of preparing a detailed report of the incidents he had witnessed as a teacher. During those days, the tension in the school was palpable. Madison seemed to sense something was happening and intensified her aggressive behavior. Michael saw her deliberately spill ink on Olivia's new shirt, hide Ryan's lunch, and push Emily in the cafeteria line. Then on Thursday, the incident that nearly made Michael snap occurred. During PE, he was covering for Robert, who was absent. The kids were playing dodgeball when he saw Madison deliberately hurl the ball straight into Emily's face with excessive force. Emily fell to the ground, clutching her bleeding nose. Madison immediately feigned concern. Oh, sorry, Emily, it was an accident. But Michael had seen it. It was deliberate, calculated, cruel. He rushed to help his daughter, and when she lifted her face, he saw she had bitten her tongue and her lip was swollen. Madison, come here, he said, his voice shaking with restrained anger. Teacher, I told you it was an accident. Sometimes the ball slips. Madison, we both know it wasn't an accident. The girl stared at him defiantly. Teacher, are you calling me a liar? It was a trap. If he insisted, she could claim he was targeting her. If he backed down, he'd be enabling her behavior. I'm saying you need to be more careful. And I want you to apologize properly to Emily. I already said sorry. No, you said it was an accident. I want you to apologize for hurting your classmate, regardless of intent. Madison hesitated, clearly unused to being challenged. Sorry, Emily, for hurting you. It wasn't sincere, but it was a small step. Michael took Emily to the nurse's office, where they learned she would need stitches for her lip. That night, as they waited at the hospital, Emily finally broke down. Dad, I can't take it anymore. Please get me out of that school. Michael held his daughter's hand, seeing tears mix with dried blood on her face. Sweetheart, if I pull you out, she'll just keep doing this to other kids. And you'll carry that forever, knowing others are suffering like you did. But Dad, what if it doesn't work? What if she gets even worse? Then at least we tried, and you'll know you had a father who fought for you. Emily nodded slowly. Okay, Dad. But promise me if it doesn't work, we'll leave. I promise. On Friday, the meeting with the principal was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. Michael had taken the afternoon off, citing a medical appointment for his daughter, which was technically true since she had to return to the hospital to change the dressing. At 2 o'clock, 6 mothers and Michael were seated in Principal Victoria Reynolds' office. She was a woman around 45, with impeccably styled blonde hair, wearing an expensive suit and a poorly concealed look of irritation. Well, what's so urgent that it required a meeting with so many people? She asked, without offering everyone a seat. Amanda, who had been chosen as the spokesperson, took a deep breath. Principal Reynolds, we're here to discuss a serious situation involving bullying in the 4th grade B class. Oh yes, you and your exaggerations. We've already talked about this individually, haven't we? We have, but the problem hasn't been resolved. In fact, it's gotten worse. The principal leaned back in her chair with a dismissive expression. Gotten worse how? Jessica stepped forward. My son Ryan came home yesterday with his shirt torn. He said a classmate yanked it hard during recess. Children play sometimes more roughly than they should, that's normal. Normal is a child needing stitches on their lip after being deliberately hit in the face during class. Michael couldn't hold back. The principal looked at him in surprise. Mr. Johnson, which child? Emily Johnson. Yesterday during PE. Oh yes, I heard about the accident. Madison was very upset about hurting her classmate by mistake. Principal, it wasn't by mistake. Mr. Johnson, are you accusing a 9-year-old child of intentionally harming a classmate? That's very serious. Michael realized he'd fallen into the trap she'd set. Any direct accusation would be turned against him. I'm saying there's a pattern of behavior that needs to be investigated. What pattern? Do you have evidence? Amanda opened a folder and placed a stack of papers on the desk. We do. Here are statements from 6 different children, incident reports from the last 3 months, photos of injuries and accounts of systematic bullying behavior. The principal skimmed the papers quickly, her expression growing more annoyed. This is ridiculous. You're fabricating a conspiracy against an innocent child. Principal, 6 different families wouldn't make up the same story, said Michelle. You underestimate what hysterical parents can do when they get together and feed off each other's fantasies. The comment was like a slap in the face. Michael saw the mother's expressions shift from hope to outrage. Hysterical? Christina repeated. Principal, my daughter has nightmares every night. Is that hysteria? Your daughter may be dealing with psychological issues you're projecting onto the school. Maybe you should seek professional help for your children instead of blaming others. Michael saw the principal was using the same old tactic, discrediting, minimizing, and shifting blame onto those who complained. Principal Reynolds, he said, trying to stay calm, as educators, our duty is to protect all children. We're asking for an impartial investigation. Mr. Johnson, as a substitute, you don't have the authority to question this school's administrative methods, and as a father, you're clearly too biased to have an objective opinion. What do you mean as a father? Victoria smiled coldly. Oh, you thought I didn't know? Emily Johnson is your daughter. What an interesting coincidence that you got a job at the very school she attends, don't you think? Michael felt the ground vanish beneath him. She'd found out and would now use it against him. That doesn't change the fact that it changes everything. A desperate father who gets a job at his daughter's school and immediately starts causing trouble. That raises a lot of questions about your real motives. My motives are to protect all children, not just my daughter. Of course they are. And I'm certain the school board will be very interested to hear about this situation when I file my report. The threat was clear. Michael was being warned that his job was on the line. Amanda tried to regain control of the meeting. Principal, regardless of Mr. Johnson's motivations, the facts we mothers presented still stand. Our children are suffering. Your children are going through the normal challenges of school socialization. You're the ones dramatizing everyday situations and creating problems where none exist. Everyday situations, Madison exploded. Her child pushing another and causing injuries is everyday. If you continue spreading lies about an innocent child, I'll have no choice but to take legal action to protect my daughter from the harassment you're promoting. Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. The principal had completely flipped the situation, turning the victims into aggressors and the aggressor into the victim. Principal, I know what you want. You want a scapegoat for your children's problems, but I won't allow you to use my daughter for that. Your daughter? Michael stood up, his patience finally running out. Madam Principal, you just admitted you're biased because Madison is your daughter. I'm being fair, protecting a child from baseless accusations. You can't impartially investigate a situation involving your own daughter. That's an obvious conflict of interest. Victoria's face turned red. Mr. Johnson, are you questioning my professional competence? I'm stating an obvious fact. You can't be the judge in a situation where your daughter is the accused. My daughter isn't accused of anything because she did nothing wrong. And you'll find out that spreading lies about a child has consequences. Michael realized the meeting had spiraled completely out of control. The principal wasn't just refusing to investigate, she was actively threatening those who complained. Principal, one last attempt, Amanda said. Will you allow an impartial party, perhaps from the education department, to investigate the situation? I won't allow outsiders to disrupt my school over the fantasies of problematic parents. Then we have nothing left to discuss, Michael said, standing up. Exactly. And Mr. Johnson, I suggest you reconsider your priorities if you want to keep working here. The mothers and Michael left the room in silence. In the hallway, Amanda was the first to speak. Well, now we know exactly where we stand. She practically admitted she protects her daughter above all else, Madison said. And threatened all of us, Christina added. Michael took a deep breath. Folks, I think we're out of options. We have to escalate this. To where? The local education department first. If that doesn't work, the local press. And, if necessary, the district attorney's office. The mothers exchanged glances. It was a big step, and they all knew there'd be no turning back. Are you all willing? Michael asked. One by one, they all nodded yes. Our children deserve better, Amanda said, and so do the other kids, Michelle added. That afternoon, Michael went home and told Emily everything. The girl listened quietly, processing the information. Dad, she's going to be really mad when she finds out you told others. Probably. Are you scared? Emily thought for a moment. I am, but I'm also tired of being scared. If we don't do anything, it'll always be like this. Sweetheart, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll protect you. I know, Dad. And now I want to help too. How? If needed, I'll speak up. I'll tell everything she did to me and the others. I won't stay quiet anymore. Michael hugged his daughter, proud of the courage she was showing. At 9 years old, Emily was ready to face her fears to protect other children. On Monday morning, Michael arrived at school expecting to perhaps be called in by the principal or fired on the spot. But nothing happened. Victoria acted as if Friday's meeting had never taken place. During class, however, he noticed Madison was more aggressive than ever. It was as if she knew there was pressure on her and was reacting with even more violence. She deliberately knocked over Emily's pencil case 3 times, accidentally stepped on Olivia's foot in line, and made mean comments about practically every girl in the class. Michael mentally documented everything, but didn't intervene directly. He needed evidence, and provoking more direct confrontations would only give the principal more ammunition to use against him. During recess, he got a call from Amanda. Michael, I got through to the education department. They scheduled a meeting for Wednesday at 10 in the morning. Great. Will you be representing everyone? No, I decided you should go. As a teacher, your voice carries more professional weight. Michael hesitated. Going to the education department would mean declaring open war against the principal. There would be no turning back. Amanda, if I do this, I'll definitely lose my job. Michael, if you don't do this, you'll lose your soul. Her response caught him off guard, and he realized she was right. Some things were worth more than financial security. All right, I'll go to the meeting. On Tuesday, Michael took time off work, citing a doctor's appointment. Technically, it wasn't a lie. Emily had a follow-up at the hospital to get her stitches removed. While waiting, Michael explained to his daughter what was going to happen. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to people at the education department. They have the power to investigate the school and take action. What if they don't believe us? Then we'll keep looking until we find someone who does. Dad, what if you lose your job? Then I'll find another one, but you won't have to go through this forever. When they got home, there was a letter from the school in the mailbox. Michael opened it with apprehension. It was a notice stating that Emily was being referred for a psycho-educational evaluation due to inappropriate classroom behavior. Michael read it twice before it sank in. The principal was striking first, creating a record that painted Emily as the problem. What is this, Dad? The principal is trying to make it seem like you're the one with issues, to discredit our side of the story. But that's not true. I know, sweetheart. That's why we need to act fast. On Wednesday morning, Michael dressed in his best clothes and headed to the municipal education department. The building was imposing, typical of bureaucracy, and he felt small walking through the halls. He was met by the regional education coordinator, Professor Margaret Baker, a woman in her 50s with a serious expression. Mr. Johnson, I understand you have concerns about Lincoln Elementary School. I do, Professor Baker, and they're not just mine. Several families are dealing with the same situation. Michael spent the next hour presenting all the material they had gathered, testimonies, photos, a timeline of events, and records of their failed attempts to resolve things internally. Margaret listened quietly, occasionally asking questions or requesting clarification. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. Mr. Johnson, these are very serious accusations. I know, that's why we're here. You understand that investigating a school, especially questioning its administration, is a complex process. I do, but I also understand that children are suffering. Are you sure there's no exaggeration in these interpretations? Sometimes normal conflicts between children can be misunderstood by concerned adults. Michael Johnson felt a déjà vu. It was the same minimizing tactic the principal had used. Ms. Margaret, a child needing stitches on their face is not a normal conflict. Yes, about that. I spoke with Principal Victoria before our meeting. Michael felt his stomach drop. You spoke with her? It's standard procedure when we receive complaints about a school. She gave me a very different version of events. What version? That you're a problematic father who secured a job at your daughter's school and are using your position to target an innocent child. That you're manipulating other parents to support a personal vendetta. Michael closed his eyes. Victoria had been faster and more efficient than he'd anticipated. And you believe that version? Mr. Johnson, Principal Victoria has 15 years of experience in the public school system. There have never been serious issues reported under her leadership, because she's always managed to cover them up before they reach the district's ears. Or because the problems never existed the way they're being presented. Michael realized he was losing the battle. The principal had built a convincing alternate narrative, and the district was inclined to trust her version. Ms. Margaret, what do you suggest? That you try to resolve this more collaboratively. Perhaps your daughter and the other girl could talk, with mediation from parents and the school. Are you suggesting that a 9-year-old who's being bullied should sit and talk civilly with her aggressor? I'm suggesting that conflicts between children should be resolved maturely by the responsible adults. Michael stood, realizing the meeting was over. Ms. Margaret, thank you for your time, but I don't think we see eye to eye. Mr. Johnson, I hope you reconsider your approach. for the sake of all the children involved. Michael left the district office feeling like he'd lost an important battle. Victoria hadn't just discredited his claims, she'd planted the seed that he was the real problem. On his way back, he called Amanda and told her about the meeting. She'd already spoken to the principal, Amanda asked, outraged. Apparently, it's standard procedure, and the principal was very convincing with her alternate version. What do we do now? Michael thought for a moment. I think we have to accept that official channels are blocked. The principal has connections and credibility we don't. So we give up? No, we change strategies. How? We go to the press. Sometimes public pressure achieves what bureaucracy can't. That night, Michael researched local journalists covering education. He found a reporter named Samantha Williams from the regional paper who'd written several pieces on public school issues. He emailed her in detail, attaching all the documentation they'd gathered. To his surprise, she replied the next day asking to talk. They scheduled a meeting for Thursday after school. Michael was nervous, but determined. Samantha Williams was a woman in her 40s, with a sharp expression and a direct way of speaking. Mr. Johnson, I've read all the material you sent. It's a complicated situation. Complicated how? On one hand, you have consistent accounts from multiple families. On the other, it's essentially your word against an established principles. And what does that mean? That to publish a story, I'd need stronger evidence, testimonies from children, ideally recorded, official school documents, maybe even catching the incidents in the act. Michael sighed. Samantha, getting that evidence is exactly the problem. The kids are too scared to talk, the school won't provide any records, and catching the incidents means being in the right place at the right time. I understand. But without that, any story I publish will be seen as sensationalism based on gossip. What if we got more families involved, more testimonies? It would help, but even then, it'd mostly be hearsay. I'd need something more concrete. Michael left the meeting frustrated. Every path he tried seemed blocked by practical or bureaucratic obstacles. That night, he talked to Emily about the situation. Dad, what if I recorded her doing something bad? Sweetheart, recording without permission could be illegal, and it'd be dangerous for you. But Dad, if the adults can't stop her, maybe the kids have to try. Emily's observation made him pause. He'd been approaching the problem as an adult, through official and formal channels, but maybe he needed to think like a child. Emily, do you think other kids would be willing to talk if they knew they wouldn't face retaliation? Maybe. A lot of people are angry at her, but everyone's scared. What if there was a way to speak up without fear? How? Michael was starting to get an idea. Risky, but maybe the only way to break the cycle of silence and fear. Honey, what if we organize something like a meeting with the kids, away from school without any adults they don't know? Do you think they'd come? I don't know, but it's worth a try. The next day, Michael discreetly discussed the idea with the mothers. After much debate, they decided to give it a shot. Amanda offered her house for an informal gathering on Saturday afternoon. Officially, it'd be a belated birthday party for Olivia, but in reality, it'd be a chance for the kids to talk openly about what they'd been going through. Do you think they'll actually speak up? Asked Jessica. If they realize they're not alone, that other kids are going through the same thing, maybe they'll find the courage, Michael replied. On Saturday, 8 kids gathered at Amanda's house. Besides Emily, Olivia, Ryan, and Abigail, Ethan, Sophia, Jack, and Isabella also came. All of them had been direct or indirect victims of Madison's behavior. Michael let the kids talk freely at first, just observing from a distance. Gradually, the stories began to spill out. She said my backpack was for poor kids, Sophia shared. And she shoved my lunch on the floor, Jack added. She made everyone laugh at me when I got the answer wrong, Isabella said, tears in her eyes. Michael realized that for the first time, the kids were seeing they weren't alone, that it wasn't their fault, that there was a pattern. Why do you think she does this? He asked gently. Because her mum's the principal, Ryan answered immediately. She always says that she can do whatever she wants because her mum runs the school. And do you think that's right? No, several voices replied at once. Then why haven't you spoken up before? Silence. Finally, Abigail spoke. Because when we do, she gets worse, and no one believes us. But what if you all spoke together? Emily suggested. If everyone told the truth at the same time? The kids exchanged glances. It was a scary idea, but also empowering. Would you all be brave enough? Michael asked. More silence. Then Olivia raised her hand. I would. If everyone speaks up, she can't hurt all of us. One by one, the other kids agreed. Michael felt a mix of pride and worry. The kids were ready to be brave, but he knew there were risks. All right, but let's do this the right way. We'll document everything, have adults present, and make sure you're all protected. On Monday, Michael returned to school with a plan. During recess, he discreetly spoke with some children and asked if they would be willing to talk to their mothers about what was happening. The response was more positive than he expected. Apparently, the meeting on Saturday had created a sense of unity among the victims. During that week, Madison seemed to sense that something was changing. Her behavior became even more erratic and aggressive, as if she knew she was losing control. On Wednesday, the incident that would spark everything to come took place. During recess, Michael was in the teacher's lounge when he heard screams coming from the yard. He ran outside and found a circle of children gathered around a shocking scene. Madison was standing over Emily, who was on the ground with her uniform torn and dirt on her face. Olivia was beside her, trying to help Emily up while crying. What happened here? Michael asked, kneeling beside his daughter. It was an accident, Madison said quickly. She tripped and fell. But Michael could see in the other children's eyes that it hadn't been an accident. And this time, there were witnesses. Olivia, what did you see? Teacher, Olivia glanced nervously at Madison. Olivia, you can tell me. I'll protect you. She pushed Emily, on purpose, and she even kicked her when she was on the ground. A shocked murmur spread through the children present. Madison turned red. That's not true. Olivia is lying. I'm not, Olivia shouted with a courage Michael had never seen in her before. I saw it. Everyone saw it. Other children began nodding. For the first time, Madison was being publicly confronted by multiple people at once. Madison, come with me. Come, now, Michael said firmly. You can't make me. My mum is the principal. Your mother may be whoever she is, but right now you're coming with me to the office. Michael helped Emily up and, holding Madison firmly by the arm, walked toward the administrative building. Several children followed them, forming a small procession. When they reached the principal's office, Michael knocked firmly on the door. Come in, Victoria's voice said. Michael pushed the door open, still holding Madison by the arm. Emily stood beside him, her uniform dirty and torn. Behind them, several children crowded at the door. What is the meaning of this? Victoria asked, standing abruptly. It means your daughter just physically assaulted my daughter in front of multiple witnesses. That's ridiculous. Madison, what happened? Mom, it was just an accident. She fell and... It wasn't an accident, Olivia shouted from the doorway. I saw her push and kick her. I saw it too, Ryan said. Me too, Abigail added. Victoria glared at the children furiously. Children, return to your classrooms immediately. No, Michael said. They stay. They're witnesses. Teacher Michael, you have no authority to... Yes, I do. As a teacher, I have a duty to protect all the children, and as a father, I have the right to defend my daughter. The tension in the room was palpable. Victoria looked from Michael to the children at the door, clearly weighing her options. Madison, tell the truth, Michael said, crouching to her level. What really happened? Madison looked at her mother, then at the other children, and Michael saw something break in her expression. Tears began to fall. I pushed her, she whispered. The room fell completely silent. Why? Michael asked gently. Because she was talking to the other girls, and they were believing her instead of me. Talking about what? About the things I do. About how I treat them. Michael looked at Victoria, who had gone pale. And do you think it was right to push and kick her for that? Madison shook her head, crying harder. No, but I get mad when people don't like me. Madison, said Michael, still gently, do you think people don't like you because you treat them badly? Or do you treat them badly because they don't like you? The question seemed to confuse the girl. She looked at the other children by the door, seeing their expressions of fear and anger, and something seemed to click in her mind. I don't know. Michael stood up and looked at Victoria. Principal, I think it's time we had a very serious talk about what's happening at this school. Mr. Johnson, you're overstepping. I'm not overstepping anything. I'm doing my professional and parental duty. At that moment, more people began appearing at the door. First, Teacher Barbara, then Mr. Taylor, and finally some mothers who had been called by their children. Amanda was the first to enter the room. Principal Reynolds, I need to know what's happening with my daughter. Mrs. Amanda, there's no need. Yes, there is. Olivia called me crying, saying she finally told the truth about what's been going on here. Other mothers entered, and the small principal's office became crowded. Victoria was clearly losing control of the situation. Everyone, please, let's stay calm. Calm, said Jessica. My son has been home for 3 months, saying he has a stomachache to avoid coming to school, and you want me to stay calm? Principal Reynolds, Michael said, seizing the moment, I think it's time to admit there's a serious problem here that needs to be addressed. The only problem here is the collective hysteria you've created. Mom, Madison said, her voice small but clear, they're not making it up. Everyone turned to look at the girl. What did you say? Asked Victoria. I do the things they're talking about. I push them, I call them names, I hide their things. The silence that followed was deafening. Madison, why are you saying this? Because it's true, Mom, and because I'm tired of being mean. Michael saw tears forming in Victoria's eyes for the first time. The professional mask was finally slipping. Mom, Madison continued, you always said I had to be better than everyone else, that I was special because you're the principal. But that just made everyone hate me. Madison, you don't have to. Yes, I do. The girl looked at Emily. I'm sorry for hurting you. I'm sorry for being so mean to you. Emily slowly stepped closer. Why did you do those things to me? Because you're smart and kind, and everyone likes you even though you don't have fancy clothes or special things, and I have everything I want, but no one likes me. Michael's heart broke for the girl. Behind the bully was a lonely, confused child. Madison, he said, it's not too late to change. But you need help. The girl nodded through her tears. I want to change. I don't want anyone to be afraid of me. Victoria was silent, visibly processing what was happening. Finally, she spoke. Michael, everyone, I think I need some time to take all this in. Principal, Amanda said, we also need to talk about how we move forward. I know, and you're right. I let my concern as a mother interfere with my responsibility as an educator. Michael saw it was the moment to push for real change. Principal Reynolds, what do you propose? First, I want to formally apologize to all the affected families. Second, I want to immediately implement a strict anti-bullying program at the school. Third, both Madison and I will start therapy to understand and resolve the issues that led to this situation. And the children who were hurt? They will also have access to psychological support if the families wish. And I want to ensure no retaliation happens against those who had the courage to speak the truth today. Michael looked at the mothers present, who seemed surprised but pleased with his response. One last thing, he said. I think it would be good to have external supervision to implement these changes, to make sure they actually happen. Victoria hesitated, but nodded. I agree. I'll request that the Department of Education send someone to oversee the implementation of the changes. In the days that followed, Lincoln Elementary School underwent a remarkable transformation. The first change was Madison herself. With professional help, she began to understand how her behavior affected others. Michael witnessed her approaching Olivia during recess. Olivia, can I talk to you? Olivia hesitated but nodded. I want to really apologize, and I want to know if you can teach me how to be a real friend. It wasn't immediate, and there was initial resistance from several children. But gradually, with adult supervision and a lot of work, Madison began to integrate into the group in a healthy way. The most significant change was in Emily. Michael saw his daughter blossom once the constant fear was gone. She started smiling again, participating in class and making friends. Dad, she said one night, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for having the courage to speak the truth. You know what's really cool? What? Now when Madison does something nice like helping someone or being kind, everyone is genuinely happy for her. It's so much better than when everyone was scared. 3 months later, Michael received a call from the Department of Education. It was Margaret. Mr. Johnson, I wanted to congratulate you on your exceptional work at Lincoln Elementary. Thank you, Ms. Baker. The supervision reports have been excellent. The school has become a model for others in the district. That's wonderful to hear. Michael, I'd like to offer you a permanent position, no longer as a substitute, and there's a possibility you could become an instructional coordinator soon. Michael smiled. The job he'd nearly lost for standing up for what was right had turned into an opportunity for growth. Ms. Baker, I'd be delighted to accept. That evening, he shared the news with Emily. Dad, does this mean you won't be working at other schools anymore? It means we're staying here, at our school, helping make it even better. Our school, I like how that sounds. Michael hugged his daughter, thinking about everything they'd been through. The fight had been hard, scary, and risky, but it had been worth it. 6 months later, the school organized a science fair. Michael was helping students with their projects when he saw a sight that filled him with pride. Madison and Emily were working together on a project about friendship and cooperation. They laughed as they painted a poster, completely at ease with each other. Mr. Johnson, Madison said, walking up to him, "Can I talk to you?" "Of course, Madison." "I wanted to say thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For not giving up on me when everyone thought I was too mean to change." Michael knelt to meet her eye level. "Madison, you were never too mean to change. You just needed help understanding how to be the good person who was always inside you. And now I have real friends." "Yes, you do. And do you know why?" "Why?" "Because now they see who you really are." Michael looked around the fair, watching children working together, laughing, helping one another. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, the same place had been filled with fear and tension. Principal Victoria approached him. "Michael, can I speak with you?" "Of course, Principal Reynolds. I wanted to thank you again for having the courage to confront the situation when I couldn't see beyond my perspective as a mother. We all make mistakes, Victoria. What matters is that we learn and grow. Madison is doing much better, and so am I. Therapy has helped us a lot in understanding how we got to that point." Michael nodded. "What's important is that you're both working to change." "Michael, there's something I want to tell you. Last week we had a visit from a delegation of other schools. They want to implement our anti-bullying program in their districts." "Really? Our school has become a regional model. And it all started with a father who refused to accept that his daughter should suffer in silence. That afternoon, after all the students had left, Michael stayed alone in his classroom organizing materials. Emily walked in, still excited about the fair. "Dad, did you see how great our project turned out?" "I did. You all worked so well together." "You know what's the most amazing part?" "What?" "Madison really became my friend. Not just because the adults told her to, but because she wanted to." Michael smiled. "And how do you feel about that?" "At first it was weird, but now I see she was mean because she was sad and confused, not because she was a bad person." "That's a very important lesson, sweetheart." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Were you scared when you decided to stand up to the principal to protect me?" Michael thought for a moment. "Yes, I was. Very scared." "Then why did you do it?" "Because some things are more important than fear. Protecting you and other kids was one of them. What if you had lost your job?" "Honey, I can find another job. But I can't find another daughter. And I couldn't live with myself knowing I let you suffer when I could have done something." Emily hugged her father. "Thank you for being brave for me. Thank you for teaching me that fighting for what's right is worth it." 2 years later, Michael was teaching when a staff member from the office brought in a special visitor. It was journalist Samantha Williams, accompanied by a TV crew. "Professor Johnson, remember me?" "Samantha, of course I do. What brings you here?" "We're doing a special feature on schools that have turned bullying problems into success stories. Your school is our main case." During the interview, Samantha asked Michael what had been the hardest moment in the whole process. The hardest moment was realizing the official channels were blocked and I had to choose between my financial security and my daughter's well-being. And what made you decide to keep fighting? The understanding that it wasn't just about my daughter. It was about all the kids who were suffering and would keep suffering if no one had the courage to act. What advice would you give other parents who might be going through similar situations? Michael thought carefully before answering. First, believe your children. Second, document everything. Third, look for other families who might be going through the same thing. And finally, don't give up. Change sometimes takes time, but it's almost always worth fighting for. And for educators, that they remember our job isn't just to teach subjects, but to protect and shape human beings. And sometimes that means having hard conversations and making brave decisions. When the interview ended, Michael returned to his classroom and found a note on his desk. It was from Madison, now in 6th grade. Professor Johnson, I saw the TV crew here today. I wanted you to know I'm grateful you helped me change. Today, I told my new class about how I used to be mean and how I learned to be different. Some boys were bullying a new girl, and I convinced them to stop. Thank you for showing me it's always possible to change. Madison, Michael smiled, carefully tucking the note away. It was proof that all the suffering, all the struggle, all the courage had been worth it. That evening during dinner, Emily shared about her day. Dad, today I helped a 2nd grade girl who was crying during recess. I asked what was wrong and she said some girls were picking on her. And what did you do? I talked to the girls. I explained how bad it feels when someone picks on you, and they apologized. And the 2nd grade girl? Now we're friends. The other girls too. Sometimes people are mean because no one ever explained how much it hurts. Michael looked at his daughter with immense pride. At 11 years old, Emily had learned lessons about empathy, courage, and justice that many adults never do. Sweetheart, you make me so proud. Why? Because you turned your pain into wisdom, and your wisdom into help for others. I learned from you, Dad. Actually, honey, I think we learned together. End of story. So, dear listeners, what did you think of this story of courage and transformation? Do you think Michael made the right choice by risking everything to protect not just his daughter, but all the children who were suffering? How would you react in a situation like this? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. I love reading every message you send. And if this story touched you in any way, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories coming soon. Thanks for your wonderful company, as always.